everybody, and welcome to Mad Realm's Vote to Kick. I'm your host, Jim, and with me this week, fellow Talking Script co-host, Age. Sorry, man, I'm tired. I apologize.
No.
So how you doing, bud?
All right, back from Miami, got a 10, as you can see. And got a sore throat as well, but that's what I get for coming back to winter.
Yeah, that and, all the partying you did in Miami, all the screaming at the club, right?
Wish I was in the club. I need to do clubs next time. I don't want to pack all the dress stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, trips. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight our topic is large-scale changes in competitive game modes, which is a bit of a mouthful. But before we get to that, our vote results from 2 weeks ago when Aaron and I discussed crafting system complexity. Right on over there, Aaron, the kicks beat me. I'm not surprised. I think a lot of the things that I would love to see in crafting systems for complexity just can't be done yet, which makes me sad, but for now I can understand where Aaron was coming from on that, as well as people voting for kick. But go ahead and do the magic and zip on over to the fresh poll, where we have tonight's topic: Age arguing kick. The floor is yours.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry if I cough in between, guys. I'm just recovering from this cold stuff. So with large scale changes to competitive game modes, they're not a good thing, mostly because, and I think this is the primary thing, is because a whole shift in gameplay could be very detrimental to the game mode. That causes players anxiety, stress, depression, but more importantly, they just don't want to play the game mode. Now, what I mean by this is that if you take something that people have been doing for a long time and you just throw in something that changes everything, they have to relearn all the things, and some of the mechanics that they enjoyed in the game they don't enjoy. Now, what I would rather see, is more smaller scale changes that would eventually lead to a nice shift in gameplay. That way people can get accustomed to changes as they come in. And then lo and behold, you still have people who like what's happening, or even better, if they don't like what's happening, they can easily make adjustments based on the small scale thing that they add. That's my opening argument.
Okay, that's fair. And I get that is a big shakeup that seems kind of out of nowhere can always be seen as a big problem. My issue for keeping is, and I'm gonna go a little old school here. Melee, Super Smash Bros. Melee, was recently removed from the lineup at Evo, I believe.
How dare they?
I know, but I know why. Following a few people on Twitter for just they're big into Smash, and the problem with Melee is it's a solved game. Apparently, one of the things that people would complain about is that the big names for Melee would show up to tournaments and they'd always be the final fights. So you'd always see the same people playing the same characters doing the same fights because there can be no changes to Melee. So if a game becomes solved, it stagnates and you start losing just as many people as if you were doing constant massive changes. So in that particular case, you need the ability to introduce change to change the way people play the game. Take, for example, Guild Wars 2 recently, the World vs. World game type, they introduced the Warclaw, a mount, to World vs. World. It has its own unique mechanics, unique from other mounts in PvE types, but it is changing the way people play the game because it introduces new tactics. I think that was necessary because despite 2 expansions adding two new elite specializations, which are effectively brand new classes into the game. So there are 9 base classes, each one having 2 elite specializations. There's effectively 27 different classes in the game. The way people play World versus World, for someone from the outside looking in, for the times I've dabbled with WW in between like classic Guild Wars 2, Heart of Thorns, Path of Fire, doesn't feel like anything's really changed. People just run around doing the same things, flipping the same camps the same way, and that's it. So large scale changes are necessary to keep stagnation from happening. And that's my counterpoint to upsetting balance.
Okay, so I agree stagnation is an issue, but I don't think you need like large scale changes in order to beat out like just like crush stagnation. If you take Melee, going back to that example, I agree it's a soft game, but that game wasn't meant to be an updated game. That game was just meant to go out like you said, it's an old school game, and it's been in the circuit for a while. Let's see, like at least 15 years, I want to say. Like I forget when Melee came out, but it's like over a decade for sure.
November 21st, 2001.
Yeah, so 18-year-old game. Of course, it's going to be solved, especially when there's no patch updates. So, taking that into account, I think Evo finally removed Melee. In addition to being a soft game, is that people can actually transition into the new Smash Bros. Smash Bros. Ultimate, because it is a culmination of what Melee players like and what Brawl and Wii U players liked, and it meshed into one. It's a game where everyone can enjoy it to some degree. Now, I agree that there's some people who play Melee for years and just love that Melee is the thing for them. And I was kind of sad when they took it out of Evo, but I understand why, because like this transition to Ultimate is kind of the new wave, the new competitive scene that they want to invest in, and I think it's a good decision in terms of the investment. So going into your discussion of the War Claw, now the War Claw is an interesting one just because it is a change. It's an interesting thing because it's a change that doesn't seem very big at first, but it has very large impact in terms of how the game is played. It affects how people roam. It affects how people havoc. It affects how people Zerg. It affects how Zergs fight now. It affects how fast people get from respawns to defend, and how. Thank you, Taz. Much appreciated. Oh, I'm sorry. That's why I tweeted her about. Anyway,
Of course you did.
Yeah, of course I did. Anyway, so the War Claw is a large scale change in terms of the way the entire game mode is played now, not in terms of how points are calculated, but just in terms how players perceive that this change is going to affect World versus World, and warranted. Just seeing it on paper and seeing it on the dev streams, you could see the possibilities that could come out. And people are afraid of that, mostly because of the change of pace the game is going to take. The effect of defending. I think honestly, defending is something that needs to be changed in World versus World. Do I think Amount does that? Maybe to some degree, but I don't think it concretely solves that issue. Do I think Zerg fighting is kind of bland? Yeah, I guess so. But I think that's more to do with balance rather than just adding a new mount in order to facilitate a new perspective. Don't get me wrong, it does change the way Zergs fight, but I don't think that was very needed in order to make the changes. Excuse me. Wow. I don't think that the War Claw was the necessary thing to change Zerg fighting. Like, there's a lot of balance issues as well. I'm getting to something else, but there's a lot of balance issues that are happening, and I think now with the recent changes here in they're going to balance a lot better, and I think they're going to allow different specs to do different things. And actually, we've seen in the last balance patch there was a significant change to warriors with banners and the Winds of Disenchantment thing bubble. So they have to change their style of play for Zerg fighting, rather than they have to be in the front line in order to protect people rather than just plopping it down and running away. Those are the changes I'm looking for, like small scale changes that affect World vs. World in a positive light. So basically, my counter argument to that is that I feel like small scale changes that don't break the game can easily be as effective in changing the play style of World versus World or any game mode really.
Okay. My only potential rebuttal to that is with my experience from World v World, where the myriad of changes that have happened over the years before the War Claw, from just a person walking into it, because I'll admit I've never really gotten into the theory of Dub v Dub, but
Okay.
so I've effectively always been at the new person walking into it, so baseline entry level. It
Okay.
looks like the same thing all the time, which means that as the greater audience walking into it is going to see the same thing all the time. And
Yeah.
that's where the issue comes from, is that the baseline experience has had little to no observable change to an entry level player for the lifetime of the game.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that, and Wispy does say that the argument boils down to a lot of small changes over time versus a mega update. And then
It pretty much does. Yeah.
Deo brings up the point of console gaming tending to have large chunk updates, primarily because of consoles having
Yeah.
a certain verification process. So you're only going to be able to make so many changes in a given year. So you're going to want to make the most use of that verification process. So I think that's more a platform argument as opposed to the concept for the show for
Yeah,
them
I
making.
I would say in most recent, like last year and this year, like that has been getting better in terms of patches. Like if you look at Overwatch, patches for that for PC go out pretty much at the same time as PlayStation and Xbox now.
And PC technically gets the patches first, right?
Typically, yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember if they developed PC first, then to console, or the other way around. Um, and that's another thing. Another great example is Overwatch getting a new character. So you're expanding the roster. At that point in time, like, is that something that kind of falls under something you dislike, or
Hmm. Okay, so the argument I can make for Overwatch is that, all right, for those who don't know, Overwatch has been dominated by this meta called GOATs, and it's GOATs is basically three supports, three tanks. It's an unstoppable moving ball of death, and you just dive onto one person, and then you destroy them, and then you destroy the rest of the team because 5v6 not gonna win. Um, what what Blizzard have been doing consistently for new heroes is that they put in a new hero to kind of switch the meta a bit. I don't like that. I much prefer balance be uh, balance be adjusted in order to solve issues, because Goats has been dominant for platinum and above. It's been in Overwatch League. If anyone watches it, people just play that composition over and over and over again. It gets boring. I stopped watching after like four times, unless it's like specific teams. And so, and oddly enough, this has been happening for 6 months, and the community realized this, and it's like, hey, this is going to be the predominant thing in Overwatch League, and they didn't change it, and then Overwatch League happened, and it predominantly. changes. So what needed to happen was some balance changes in order to prevent that composition from being so oppressive. Now, what they're doing is they're doing a whole bunch of changes in addition to the new hero that's coming out. So that's going to be a whole new ballpark. Now, will goats go away? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe the new hero will actually be part of the new goats composition because it is a support. It actually does pretty good heals, and then you still have the issue of of the same composition being run over and over again. People get bored of that, and it doesn't change anything. Whereas if they put in the balance patch, see how it goes, and then put out the hero, then they could see how the game changes. But the thing is now, excuse me. Oh man, I'm sorry. Thing is now is that we have to. There is no time to actually wait, right? Because they're a company, right? They have to put out new heroes, keep people invested, keep people interested in the game, and there's probably always a bump in players coming back to check out the new hero. So it's like, what can you do in that case, right? But I strongly believe in more frequent balance patches in order to facilitate healthy, balanced, competitive gameplay. But I think um, the only company I really can think of off the top of my head is Riot Games with League of Legends. Um, it's because that roster is so huge now, and um,
Well, that particular example, I was talking to Krista before the show. Preseason for League of Legends, when they finish the ranked season and they're just like, here is this giant avalanche of changes. Have fun.
yeah, I feel like you brought this up, but yeah, the thing is there. I don't necessarily like those changes because I have to relearn the game again. Um, I think the biggest transitions for League of Legends was when they did the rework of the new map of Summer's Rift, the uplift, the
visual
facelift, I
update.
guess. And I think like from season 3 to season 4 to season 5, where they introduced like Sightstone. Um, but all those things means that you have to relearn the game, and depending what role too. So like if the jungle changes entirely, you're gonna have to learn how to jungle the new one. You're gonna have to learn what's efficient for what hero, what champion, sorry, that you play. What's the most efficient route? When you can get dragon? When you can get any new creatures along the way? What are the benefits of getting this? Is it worth getting this? When can I gank? All this stuff. It's all new learning experience. Um, Sometimes it's good, but like throwing a whole new minefield of changes sometimes is just not as fun. Like I used to jungle a lot, but like after like the jungle's changed 3 times, I'm like, I'll just stick to the top lane and just have fun.
Top lane is an island. I'm used to that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, and this is the problem I had recently with. I haven't been back to Guild Wars 2 PvP since the recent change, but
Okay.
like for the longest time, and this is probably something that would probably be solved by your more frequent updates,
Mm-hmm.
Paul. But mirages in Guild Wars 2 PvP were oppressive to a ridiculous degree,
Okay.
and that took too long to change, so I stopped going. I stopped playing PvP because it just was not fun, because I knew at some point I was going to end up in a 1v1 against a Mirage, because I can't get away from them with most of the classes that I'm good at playing, and I'm not going to be able to 1v1 them because it's a Mirage.
Okay.
Mesmers, in a general sense, in Guild Wars history, both 1 and 2, Mesmers are incredibly adept at dueling. It's
Yeah.
just kind of built into their class.
As far as I know, Thief is the only Sword Dagger Thief is the only thing that could fight it. as far as I know. I think there was like an elementalist build that you could run too, but I can't
I
remember.
used to be able to keep up with my Tempest with using fresh air for just churning out massive amounts of lightning overload
Hmm.
because AoE is how you kill clones, but it's just the clone output is ridiculous. So that's the problem, is that it took too long for that to change.
Hmm.
So it takes too long for something to change, and then it has to be a big change, or it has to be more frequent balance updates. So it's kind of seems like we've hit the middle ground here,
Yeah.
which tends
Well.
to happen on this show. You either need a dev team, and this is pretty much your argument, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you either need a dev team that is making constant updates to tweak balance the way it needs to go,
Mhm.
or you need some kind of stagnation buster mechanic to come in and force people to think of a different way to play the game.
Yeah, because if you look at it, if you look at it in small increments, because if you look at it in small increments, because when you go in and you don't want to just completely nuke Mirage, right? And then have all the Mirage players like, well, this sucks. I'm not gonna play this anymore. You want it so that Mirage gets from OP to like, okay, it's not that bad to fight against. Rather than just going full in with a change and then leave it for 6 months and have people either complain that Mirage is terrible or complain Mirage is still OP. It's terrible.
And Wispy's basically talking about large changes during a competitive season, which that is something we haven't talked about is ranked game modes, because we're talking about competitive game modes here.
Yeah.
That's specifically why I brought up, we were talking about League, is that the reason Riot drops these massive preseason patches is because this is a whole bunch of stuff that they've been kicking around experimentally in their own testing builds in the background that they don't want to
Yeah.
introduce to the game while ranked is going on. My biggest problem with this, and this is kind of going against the one thing that, like my keep side for large changes, was when Path of Fire released and ArenaNet allowed the new elite specs into ranked PvP queues. Because I think everybody who plays Guild Wars 2 knows that Scourge was stupid on launch.
Yeah.
Just worse, more oppressive than it is now. And yeah,
Mhm.
it was not
Yeah.
great.
That's more of like managing new things like that. So like for Overwatch and League of Legends do this. They wait like, I don't know, a week until like people have played it like in quick play or whatever, and then they put it into the rank mode afterwards when they see like how people have been playing it. But some people just like wait till it's in ranked anyway. So I'm just like, please don't be that person. Please practice
No,
setting.
no, I'm gonna first time something in ranked. That's how I play.
Anyway, but yeah, uh, I think in the case of Path of Fire, actually, is one of the things that I thought was good. So let me go back a bit. So when Hawk came out, there was a lot of issues in terms of some elite specs being good, some being underwhelming, and it took them. And I remember this distinctly: 6 months for all the elite specs to be in a decent spot where they can be played in a competitive manner. That was good. And then afterwards, there were some changes to make things go up or down, whatever. And then we have Path of Fire comes out, and then we had this long slog of Scourge being very strong, and then Mirage being very strong, and we've had lots of periods in between where there have been updates, but they haven't been effective. But we have to wait 3 months for the next one to come out. Now, in my opinion, for a competitive mode, ideally 2 weeks to a month would be the best time to like put in an update. But Guild Wars 2 is an MMO, so they can't really do frequent updates like that. Where if we look at, I don't know, like League of Legends or Overwatch, they see something's overpowered, they're going to like either do it if it's super strong, they're going to patch it like within a day or two, or if it can wait, they'll wait until the next balance cycle, which is 2 weeks, which is usual.
That's true. That well, I suppose that's the thing is that I don't know how much the skill splitting offers for Guild Wars 2 because they do have the ability to balance for specific game modes, and I don't know how far they want to go with that. I know that they don't want a skill to work just completely differently from game mode to game mode, which tends to be the problem because there are points in time where it's simply the function of the skill, not necessarily the numbers, that are the problem. For example, I've often complained about, again, the Mirage Elite Specialization for Mesmer, removing the inherent weakness of clones. Clones for Mesmers are predictable and low health, which allows you to pick out the Mesmer from the fight. Mm-hmm. But the problem is the Mirage has many skills that allow the clones to be repositioned and to give them different attacks and to change their behavior. So you kind of remove the inherent issue or the inherent weakness while also granting a great deal of other strengths on top of that. Okay. Man, I'm tired because I completely forgot where I was going with that. I think I was just talking about Mesmer again. It's frequent updates and functions of skill splitting in an MMO. I don't think that they can do many numbers changes with Mirage because it's the fundamental mechanics of the Elite Specialization that are more at fault for how oppressive they are.
Exactly, yeah.
So your only real choice is to keep tuning the numbers down until individual skills feel like crap and you're still basically riding the high off of the individual mechanics as opposed to, you know, a particular skill being heavy hitting.
Yeah, or you could change the skill entirely or the trait entirely into something else and it's just across the board.
Yeah. Which then you have to manage the fallout against the other game modes in an MMO.
Mm-hmm.
So, because while one thing might be super oppressive in Guild Wars 2, ranked PvP is 5v5, World versus World is hundreds.
I would say World versus World has the lowest impact depending on the skill. I would say PvE comes second just because of raids and fractals. And then you have PvP, which is entirely dependent on what you're changing.
Yeah.
So
it seems that I'm coming from a way where, to wrap up because we're hitting our time here. My side is there are points in time where no matter what you do, no matter how many small scale changes you do, everything basically stays the same. And if you want people to change the way they think, you have to drop a big change. Example is the Warclaw in Guild Wars 2, World vs. World, a new character in Overwatch, a new champion in League, or hero in Dota, etc., etc. And then, if I understand your arguments right, your point is that consistent updating means that you can guide the path in a much better manner so that you can keep things from stagnating in the first place. Is that about right?
So you constantly updating the game keeps the game fresh, but also transitioning the style of play as well, so that you eventually change the way you play, but it's not an overwhelming change as well.
Okay. Well, I suppose that's us hitting the middle ground here. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for watching. This has been Mad Realms Vote to Kick. I've been your host, Jim. You can find me on Twitter, @MalThanosMMO. You can find me here live on twitch.tv/MadRealms. That's 2 A's in the Mad every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Vote to Kick. Followed by Zero to Hero, our usually PvP shenanigans, but I think I've branched it off to just difficult games in general.
Play League of
Maybe
Legends. Let's play ARAMs.
do we want to do you want to do ARAMs after this, or do you have somewhere to go? The only problem is Krista uninstalled it from her computer.
Oh,
She had to make room for work stuff.
okay.
But before we get into that, my guest today is Age. You can find him on Twitch and Twitter and YouTube at Age Night Road. Make sure there's a second A, not Night Rod, Night Road. Yeah, I'm bringing that meme back.
Wow, I haven't heard that meme in a while.
Yeah, I know, right? But, ladies and gentlemen, I hope to see you all later next week. Oh, right, Saturday, Talking Script, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. There's tea to be had this week.
I don't have tea, damn it. But I'll drink this.
I don't have any liquid, so that's a problem for me.
Extend the
So,
pink.
me and Age and Arlie and Deo will be talking about things. Hope to see you
People
all
are
there.
stupid.
Yeah, that's about it. But, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a fantastic evening. For those of you watching on YouTube, the poll will be in the description below. Cast your vote for keep or kick, and then let us know why in the comments. And then likes, comments, subscribe, all the YouTube bullshit that Google is trying to force us to do. So, have a fantastic night, everybody.
Bye.